Senator Bratton. Here. Senator McCreary. Here. Senator Washington. Representative Haley. Representative Kelly. Here. Representative Hausman. Representative Hine. Here. Representative Steinhoff. Here. Gotcha.
All right, we have established quorum, so we are just going to go through these. Hopefully everybody has the packet of information, and we're going to just go through the language item by item. If you have a concern or a question, please don't hesitate to ask. So the first one is the authority to confer degrees. This is the articulation agreement language that has been, if you have not heard about this, then I will be surprised.
The first one is the MSU thing. Articulation from before.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So the first item is the MSU.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Degrees.
I just read the authority to confer degrees, and because we have been so bombarded by trying to figure out the articulation agreement, I just naturally assumed. But no, this is the MSU. The act authorizes Missouri State Southern to grant Doctor of Philosophy degrees. So this is the Mizzou language that Senator Huff has been working on with Mizzou and the Missouri State. So are there any concerns regarding that?
Is this the compromised version though, correct? Not the filed version?
This is Senator Huff's language.
It is the compromise. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
For clarity, this is the one that there other schools are allowed to offer PhDs, but not the terminal degrees, not the professional degrees, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right. Any other? Okay. Yeah. So any other concerns about this? Okay. You want me to do that each time? Do you just want me to do that each time? Perfect. Okay. All right. Do they need it? They don't need a vote? No. Okay. All right. So can you just declare whether or not you're in or out? So we'll just start with.
Do an assessment and just say we're in.
Oh, we're in. Okay.
Everyone good with it being in?
This is a learning curve. Okay, we're in. We're going to keep that in. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we're going to keep that in. Perfect. All right. Here's this. That's the STEM grant. Representative, can you talk a little bit about this? I think that this was one that was added over there in the House.
Sure. This was not my bill, but it was an addition that we made in the Higher Education Committee. It provides grants for students up to $1,500 a year for those who are studying in the STEM fields. It is renewable, but there is a dollar cutoff that they can reach up to $6,000. It had unanimous support within the Higher Education Committee, and on I don't know if this one made it to the House floor or not, but it had unanimous support in our committee.
Okay. Any questions or concerns about this? All right, we'll keep it in.
And this is the underlying bill is the next part, so that's got to stay in.
Why is it at the
Career
bottom?
check.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the underlying bill. We can skip that item.
We're going to brawl over that one.
So go to the next page.
So you're all fine with that. This is the access to the Missouri financial assistance. Representative, do you have any thoughts on this? Okay,
Here we
so
go.
I'll just read it. This act modifies provisions related to the Access Missouri Financial Assistance Program. The act replaces the term expected family contribution with student aid index, which defines the amount a student's family should contribute toward the cost of post-secondary education as calculated by the United States Department of Education. Starting with the 2025-26 academic year, the act increases the financial assistance award for eligible recipients of the Access Missouri Financial Assistance Program. For students attending public two-year institution, the maximum award increases from $400 by $400 from $1,300 to $1,700, and the minimum award increases by $200 from $300 to $500. For students attending public four-year institutions, the maximum award increases by $700 from $2,800 to $3,500, and the minimum increases by $250 from $1,500 to $1,750. Additionally, the Act authorizes the Coordinating Board for Higher Education to increase the number of recipients by extending the application deadline if appropriated funds exceed the amount necessary. Any concerns about this language? All right, seeing none, we'll keep it in. I don't want this. Okay.
You can skip over it too if you want, as long as it's-
Okay. I don't want this in. We're taking this out. If anybody has it, yeah, the International Baccalaureate. This was also in another bill that we just passed. Yeah, so it doesn't need to be in here. So higher ed core curricula, I believe this is the language that has. Well, there's no need to. They're going to drop a substitute anyway. And so, because we have this provisional language that needs to be added, and so since we just passed it, there's no reason to duplicate it.
Yeah, because we have other, there are other provisions that we do in multiple bills. So I guess I'm kind of confused as if it has already passed, and what would be the harm in keeping it in this conference report as well?
Are there any other thoughts or concerns? I just thought it is duplicitous.
But we have so much other duplicitous stuff. I mean, that's kind of what we do here, is to make sure if something is vetoed, then other things that we make a decision that we want as a body, that still gets through. Not this. So if
Everybody's
we
gonna
could
keep it in?
please keep it in, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it's not going to hurt to keep it in. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So higher ed core curricula, this is the act that provides the coordinating board for our higher ed. This is our articulation agreement with the assistance of an advisory committee composed of representatives from each public community college and each public four-year institution of higher education. They approve a 60-credit-hour transferable lower division course curriculum and a common course numbering equivalency matrix for degree programs in the following subjects: general business, elementary education and teaching, general psychology, registered nursing, and general biology or biological science, or both. Each public community college and public four-year institution of higher education that offers an applicable degree program shall include in such degree programs the common course numbering equivalency matrix approved by the coordinating board. The coordinating board shall complete its work with the advisory committee before June 30th, 2027, and the transferable courses and common course numbering equivalency matrix shall be implemented at all public institutions of higher education for the 28-29 academic year. No institution of higher education shall be required to adopt the transferable lower division course curriculum for degree programs not offered at the institution. If a student successfully completes the transferable lower division courses at a community college or other public institution of higher education, those courses may be transferred to any other public institution of higher education in this state and shall be substituted for the receiving institution's core curriculum for the same degree program. A student shall receive academic credit toward his or her degree for each of the courses transferred and shall not be required to take additional core curriculum courses at the receiving institution for the same degree program. If a student transfers from one public institution of higher education to another public institution of higher education without completing all of the transferable lower division courses of the sending institution, such student shall receive academic credit toward the same degree. Okay, yeah. And no. It's like a commercial. Fast forward. So we are going to add this language to it. So this is an addition to, this basically is an appeals process. So if the student has a problem, one of the concerns that was expressed was the ability for if the discipline changed in the future, there needed to be some kind of way or mechanism for either the student or the schools, either higher ed or two-year institution, to be able to say, hey, let's have an appeals process, come back to the table and see what changes we might need to make. So we're incorporating those three components. Any questions or concerns?
This was the biggest heartache in this bill, was this provision that we added to committee and that was changed on the floor. And I think we've all had lots of visitors in our office saying both sides. But I think this
Agreed.
We came to a compromise, and this is the compromise.
So for the benefit of everyone else listening, I'll go ahead and read the 3 points, and then if you have any concerns, feel free to express them. But number 1 is the coordinating board for higher education shall develop criteria to annually evaluate the lower division course equivalency block and common course numbering equivalency matrix for the degree programs listed in paragraphs A to E of the subdivision of this section. Number 2 is the coordinating board shall develop procedures to be followed by institutions of higher education for resolving disputes concerning the inclusion of a particular course in the lower division equivalency block, and an appeals process for students in degree programs listed in paragraphs A to E of Division 1 of this section. And number 3 is the Commissioner of Higher Education or his or her designee shall make the final determination about a dispute concerning the lower division course equivalency block and give written notice of the determination as to the involved students and institutions. Any questions or concerns? Go ahead.
I just want to confirm, so both 4-year and 2-year institutions have agreed to this language and they're comfortable with this language?
This is way more than they had before.
Yep.
With an appeals process.
Yep.
So we're moving forward.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any other? Yeah.
I'm sure that this language probably makes a lot of the institutions feel better. I still have concerns about the overarching part of all of this, and I personally don't feel like we're ready to put this into law yet. I will be opposing this, even with the change.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other
Yeah,
concerns?
I think it's a good compromise. I mean, I understand that nobody's going to, on all aspects, they're all going to love it. But I think in terms of students, giving them this capability when they've spent thousands of dollars for these sorts of classes, I think this is what we've got to do to make sure that both parties are going to have to come to the table. So I support it. Thank you.
This was one, to Representative Kelly's point, this was one of the things that was on the list for compromise. This happened last night. So again, having both parties try to work on this does give them an appeals process, which was one of those key points that they wanted. So, all right. Any other
Representative, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Can you tell us what are your problems with it?
I just think particularly the 4-year institutions probably are concerned about giving out degrees for half of a program that was not under their standards and their principles. And moving into, even though I guess originally when this bill came out years ago, I think it was more open-ended, and we've narrowed it down to certain degree areas. I think that's helping moving in the right direction. But I think there's still some concerns about the quality of the students and the programs that a 4-year institution automatically has to accept.
I understand. Are you aware that we're already at 42 hours?
Yes.
Okay, so then this is just
But,
so that a child that maybe gets an
Right, but-
Associate of Nursing at a community college is able to transfer her Associate of Nursing degree without having to repeat those courses at a much more expensive rate.
No, I agree 100%, but also those 18 extra hours that they are completing could be at a different level, and particularly when some of our universities
What do you
have-
mean a different level?
Isn't that what the board is for, though? To determine those levels?
That's what the
And
task-
let's also be clear that the courses have to be pre-approved by the task force in the beginning. So it's not like, oh, okay, I go to MCC and I just take whatever I want to and Mizzou just has to take it. They've already said what they would be willing to accept. So if I take something outside of that, then that is not something that will count towards the 60 hours.
But when you say what they're willing to accept, that's after the groups have agreed and the
No,
coordinating board
ma'am,
has
you know
decided.
ahead of time. Let me give you an example. At the University of Missouri in the journalism school, you get a piece of paper like this and it's blue. On the first side is everything you take as a freshman and a sophomore. That would be the equivalent of what the junior college take. It's already determined what you can take. If you take something off of here, it doesn't count. When you flip it over, you take the upper level classes that actually direct to your major. And so then you're able, if you take something out of that hasn't already been pre-approved, then it doesn't count. So I definitely understand your concern, but the 4 years and the 2 years come together and say, hey, we're not going to take English 101, but we will take your English 209. So if there's already a pre-approval, then the 4 years have had a say.
That has
in-
been a
in-
compromise, or that has been directed by the 4-year?
I'm sorry?
The pre-approval, is that a compromise, or is that what has
the
been directed?
The task force of all 22 schools will make that decision, the 12 community
The
college
2
systems
years and the 4
10
years.
state schools.
Yeah, that's part of the language, is for them to all sit down at the table.
They all, yeah, it's 20, it should be 22, at least 22 people at the table.
Right, but that may mean that the four-year institutions are having to lower their standards a bit to come up with that compromise.
But how would that be different than now?
If they're concerned about a specific class, that's when they go through that appeals process and say, hey, these students are not coming out of here at the level that we want them. There's got to be a plan in place to fix this.
Well, I think of, for instance, at S&T, when they do their elementary education program, it's very, very STEM-based, and those courses start in the beginning years. So if a community college student transfers into the elementary education program at S&T, they have missed out on a lot of that STEM work that's been done, unless this coordinating board decides to change that standard that actually has to lower it for the S&T's graduation program.
Why would it
But I
not
don't
be
think they would
raising-
have to lower it because there's STEM classes at every last one of our community colleges.
There may not be that STEM focus in the elementary education program. I mean, yes, they're going to talk about
But
STEM
that is a
ideas, but
decision,
not
that
at
is
the
what S&T
level.
comes to the table to make sure to say, hey, to transfer your credits to S&T, you have to have this, and
Right.
this. So all of our community college programs offer extensive STEM, especially considering that STEM has moved forward and is a big focus of the majority of our community colleges.
I agree that STEM is important in every place that we're studying, but there are different colleges that are focusing in different areas. and
But
this
that's
is
why those
leveling
colleges are
that.
at the table to make a decision as to what they will accept. I'm going to go, say if I'm going to go to S&T and I'm coming from MCC.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to say, hey, you guys have an engineering program at MCC, so for your education transfers, they're going to have to take some of those pre-engineering courses. That's a decision that 4-year gets to say.
So the evolution of the language of the bill was, and some of the agreed language was to make sure that every college was represented. That was something that wasn't there. So every college is going to be on that task force. The other thing is that we took out, there was concern about a statewide curriculum. That is something I had heartburn about. We don't want curriculum being dictated. There should be some flexibility for them to use whatever method of teaching that they want, so long as those benchmarks are being met, right? So for you to come to our college and have those degrees, those credit hours be transferred to us, we want you to know these things, and that's what they're agreeing on. So we changed it from a curriculum to like benchmarks. Then what I thought was important was to have an appeals process. So if higher ed at some point says, listen, these lower ed courses, or even reverse, right? The junior colleges are saying, listen, we want to be on the cutting edge of this degree program. This program is morphed, it's changing, the discipline has changed because of technology or something else. There's a mechanism for them to go to that, for them to have an appeals process. And the student itself, if you were a student going to the college and you were seeing that there was a discrepancy between them, you also have that appeals process. So it's not just cut and dry, one and done. You can continue to revisit it, and I thought the appeals process made it more palatable.
Just
Go ahead.
earlier in the week when there was a talk of a compromise with maybe not the 60 hours, was this considered then? Was this mentioned then, or did this just all come up? It was mentioned? So this isn't just something that came up last minute or anything?
I mean, we've been talking about this ever since it came ever since Senate Bill 150 came up. There's been talk about the articulation agreement. This was one of those points that the higher ed did want. They wanted an appeals process. And so for us to get it worked out last night, I felt like was a good thing. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just a comment. I want to make it clear that 2-year and 4-year institutions play a very important role in educating our students in our state, and I don't want to give an impression whatsoever that a 2-year degree or a 2-year institution is of lesser quality than a 4-year institution. And I'm come from a 4-year institution, but I do want to make sure that we are not suggesting or implying that a 2-year institution is less than a 4-year institution. They have similar but different purposes. When you have specialized degree plans, or if you want to make your degree unique to your institution, it is often within those upper division courses that those 4-year degree programs offer that help add into that specialized difference, makes them different across the state. So I do want to make sure that that is kind of on the record to some extent that we by no means, or at least I by no means, feel like the two are lesser. They serve different but equal purposes in some fashion, and I do appreciate the work that was done to come to the compromise last night. That's important for me
Right.
to feel comfortable with it, so I appreciate all the people who were at the table to do that work.
I appreciate your comments and you expressing that. And again, this is why I think that it's not every degree, it's just those listed. And for them, again, to have an appeals process, I felt like was an important component. For me,
What-
my two-year college serves, they try to be more cutting edge to be able to compete
right.
with other colleges. And so for them to be able to have a voice to be able to appeal to was important.
And I think of us adopting a policy, because these institutions like to almost, protect their own, and it's quite clear that seems to be what's going on in the turf warfare. And adopting a policy like this forces everyone to the table and forces everyone to be on the same level game and playing field, and to be and to work with one another, and unfortunately we have to be the ones to force that. So that's what I think this does.
For those four-year institutions that have already been doing this, right, like I love my four-year college, they already have articulation agreements in a regional place. And so they're already moving to try to do some of this. So for those four-year institutions that already have articulation agreements, they should be applauded and commended for that effort to try to really implement what it is that we're doing here. Again, this will be probably my last statement on this, but to have them have an appeals process, I think, is healthy.
So I guess I appreciate all that, and I really appreciate all the comments. In fact, I was an adjunct instructor for community college for a while, so I see both sides. I just whenever this was reached late last night, I guess. Do we have everybody on board where the four-year colleges and everybody referred to, or are they aware of this? We've worked hard all for 5 months, and now it's come down to rush here at the end, and I just want to be cautious and make sure that we have everything covered before we approve something or not approve something that is so vitally important. Years, yes. Right, I'm not, right. Well,
So Brown's amendment changed the effective date of the articulation, pushing it back a year. And then they also have equal representation between the community college and 4 years. So again,
Okay.
the bill is much better than it was. Senator McCreary and some of you who have been working on this longer or seen the language longer than I have, it's much better than it ever has done. And honestly, in the building, we always know if there's a problem, we're going to hear it from either one of our institutions. More than likely, we'll be back to have this discussion if it's not something that is amiable to either side. Nobody is trying to undermine their four-year institution nor their two-year institution, and I have a district which has both. I love them both. So we're just trying to create a relationship in which both can function and serve the students in the best fashion that we can. Yeah.
To the comment about, like, you used S&T as an example, well, it would be the same thing if I came from another Missouri system school and I wanted to go to S&T. You're going to automatically accept those, and I can tell you from someone who had a child in college and I had to go to a different university. To take them. So we're not talking about your upper level classes, we're just talking about those that you take at a community college. And I think that if we're trying to get more kids educated, more kids in the working force, then that's what we need to do. And echoing what Senator Carter already said, there are the community college in my community, and me and Senator Bratton's community, they have an articulation agreement already with every single institution, public and private, in the state of Missouri. So this is just enhancing that and offering those same opportunities for our other private community colleges who may or may not have the wherewithal or the staff to be able to go out and do those type of agreements.
All right, so that stays. All right, the next Is Representative Kelly, would you please explain the others? Well, we have the reciprocity for law enforcement spouses. That's current law requires an oversight body for professional licenses to waive an examination, educational or experience required within 30 days for a resident military spouse or a non-resident military spouse, and issue such applicant a license if the applicant meets all other requirements. This act provides such waiver to resident and non-resident spouses of Missouri, so it's reciprocity for veterans. I think that needs to stay. Okay. And next, Representative Kelly, if you would just go over the next 7. We're on the last page. Yes.
Okay, so this is Davidson's amendment that he added, STEM career awareness activity program in both high schools. This is more elementary, secondary education. I believe, yeah, I can't tell if it has or not anywhere else.
Anybody have any questions about that? It's good. Keep it in. The STEM Career Awareness Activity Day.
So what it does is the goal is to increase the number of caseworkers in social work.
There was some concerns regarding, I had a conversation with Representative Shields about this lowering the qualifications for a social worker, but that, I think that wasn't the case. She was trying to get them out to be able to have those mentoring hours sooner as they're going through their coursework. So just, if you had that question, that was one that I had. So it's not lessening their qualifications, it's just helping them get out into the field and to be able to accumulate those mentoring hours that they get. Okay. All right, so that stays?
You've already done amendment 3, so amendment 4 was Representative Martin's, funeral involving, so that allows, traditions to allow.
There was some concern in the Senate when that was heard in committee. Do you know if? I don't know if he addressed some of those concerns. That was a dad joke. And Joe Nicola did not want it to pass in committee, and they had made some amendments. So did he have the amended language, or did he? I just,
I don't hold it, so I would say if anyone has concerns, if we need,
Does anyone have the bill number for the funeral embalming?
yeah, that'd be really good.
have that back here.
Is there another, do you have more?
of these.
what's that?
Yeah, because we don't.
There was some concern over some of the language, and he had worked with, Senator Nicola had the problems with it. So I was under the impression that they had worked on some of the language.
You don't know what the underlying bill number is?
House Bill 834 is what
834.
I believe so.
Okay.
That's House Bill 834.
I know we've heard it. believe so.
No. We heard it in our committee.
Wait, is House Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
House Bill 834.
I think it might have been just included on one of the other bills that came through, yeah. I know it came on in some effects.
I just don't want there to be this to blow it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember having any issues with it.
Well, it was Senator Nicole that had problems with it in
Chairman,
committee.
Madam Chair, is there someone that, do we have some concerns about this, if people don't like it?
There were concerns expressed in committee.
Can you tell me what those were, if you remember?
No, I don't. I wasn't the one that had the concerns, but I remember there was stiff pushback.
I guess because, you know,
And so I don't know if it
I
was.
guess my thing is we let medical students practice medicine under a medical physician. We let lawyers practice law under supervision. We let people do hair under people.
I don't think it was a supervision problem. I think it had to do with some of the oversight or something. They were working on the language, on a resolution to it. It wasn't the underlying concept that was a problem. It was some of the language that was added.
Okay.
And so I just don't know where this amendment.
Why don't we ask if the body's okay with it, we keep it for now, but we'll talk to that senator after.
Okay.
And then we can remove it later.
All right, let's go ahead and keep it in now. We'll remove it later if the senator still has a problem, or we'll work through that.
It was on a professional registration omnibus that came through.
It already was on a bill.
Well, it was on, but I don't think that was going through.
That's staying in. Nobody has a problem with that, right?
Basically, I think a method for them, if a program ceases to exist in the future and it's something that they, I guess, have already put money into kind of thing, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Their program is not existing and there's some mechanism to get restitution based on that.
So it was kind of like a restitution where if there's a. Okay. Any questions on Amendment 10? No, so it stays in? Okay. That's under the same amendment, Amendment 12? So this is, what's the loan repayment? Are you guys okay with that? All right. Any other questions? All right, we good? All right, let's adjourn. Yep. Thank you. They'll do it as soon as we're